Hi, everyone. My name is Sujeet, and thanks for joining this session. Really happy to be part of the product school community and sharing some of the insights that I've gathered throughout my experience with all of you. Thank you for joining. So let me start by introducing to you my journey so far. I've actually started out my career as a software engineer, then did my MBA in marketing, and then started out as a customer behavior analyst in the Middle East. So that's like a UX researcher. Then joined as a product manager in Vunic Technologies, which is like a fashion e-commerce based in India. Then moved on to Blibli.com as a director of marketplace, and this is based in Indonesia. And finally, right now, I'm in Zalando, working as a senior product manager in the category experience team, and I'm based in Berlin, Germany. So the reason why I'm sharing my journey so far is that if you can see the companies that I've worked with, each of them is like at a different scale. So Cadence International being an absolute startup in Middle East, to Zalando, which is close to 9 billion USD revenue in Berlin and close to 15,000 employees. So each of it is a stage. So I've worked in startups, middle-level companies, and also the big companies. So the advice that I'm going to give you in this presentation will be kind of scalable across companies mostly, but with a small caveat, and I will let you know the caveat in the coming slides. So yeah, this is the topic for today, a PM's guide to smooth collaboration with product designers. And why is this webinar necessary? So as product managers, what we see is that our twin purposes in the organization, our reason for existing in the organization is one, to ensure that organization and product objectives are achieved. And second, to ensure that team morale and motivation is maintained. So it's not a matter of just one project, right? We have to work on multiple projects. So this is to also ensure that the team morale, the design team, the engineering team, their morale is maintained. And to do this, we will need to have a very collaborative mindset. And this mindset is needed between the three pillars of this process, that is product, design, and tech. And it's not just enough to give lip service, hey, we are a very collaborative team, etc. It's actually creating a proper collaborative organization or a mindset within a team is pretty difficult. In this team, it's not like only the product managers decide, the designers design, and the tech code. No, it's like how all the three of these individual components can come up with their perspectives and their unique skills, complementary skills, and bring together it to the table to ensure that the best decisions for the products are taken. So this requires a lot of trust, honesty, and transparency amongst the teams to achieve. Yeah. So here I'm going to focus on the relationship between these two teams, the PM and the UX designer, and these two components specifically, because I mean, each of these components has a lot of depth. So I want to focus on this one and want to share some insights. So generally what happens is that like a lot of PMs, think, product managers are from Mars and UX designers are from Venus. Product managers bring across the skills of, metric management, stakeholder management. We talk about business and valuation, etc. While UX designers are more focusing on the customer experience, the visual design, etc. So we are like, seem to be coming from two different worlds, and that might be the cause of some of the conflicts. So this webinar is actually to provide practical tips on how, in spite of the difference of perspectives that we may come with, how we can collaborate to create kick-ass products. And like you must have heard everywhere, technology is relatively easy. It's people that are hard. So hopefully, some of these insights will actually help you. And how I'm going to give you these insights, this flow of insights about collaborating with between product management and UX designers is through taking through the process of product management. So as you can see, we can start with the discovery phase where you discover more about the users and the user journey. Then you define saying that this is the right problem to solve. These are the constraints of the problem. This is how, these are the things that we need to keep in mind. Then the design phase starts where actually, the design team actually takes over and they kind of design. the solution, and then finally the development happens, and then you have the launch and feedback, and this is like an iterative process. So I wish it was so simple, but as you know, like in organization, there will be multiple projects. As you can see, there will be a product strategy, team setup, team process, team culture, and then there will be business strategy, which is like overlying this business company structure, company culture, and above that is the stage of the product and competitor offerings and market interest. So even though I will take you through this process and give you tips for each of this process, please keep in mind, and this is the caveat that I was speaking about earlier, that your individual team can be influenced by a lot of factors. So please take this advice with a piece of salt and pinch of salt, and kind of customize it for your team as well. But more or less, if you go through each of these stages, every team goes through it, and most of this advice can be used for your teams. So let's look at each of the stages in detail. Let's start with the discover phase. As you know, this is the stage in which we go exploring more about the customer problem. We understand who is the customer, which is a different persona of the customer. And also we come to know more about the journey of the customer and what do they want to do in each step. So, and this is the place where the research team and the data team and maybe the customer care team and all such teams get involved a lot. So here, basically the product and design are equally responsible. I'm going to just take you through 2 slides before each phase. The first slide is about the role distribution, and the second one is about tips for PM specifically. So the role distribution, as you can know, like product and design come together to create a research brief, and basically also identify competitors for evaluation. And that's an important point because we have to find out what is the competitor in the minds of the customer rather than what we think of as competitor. But this is also the place where the product and the design create a basic game plan of the project along with the engineering team. You can see the key deliverables is customer journey maps, empathy maps, competitor mapping, research and survey reports. So these are like some of the deliverables that we see. And let's say in this discovery phase, what are the tips that a PM can use to actually collaborate better with the design to avoid conflicts over here? So first thing is, like, of course, keep an open mind about the requirements and do not prejudge or assume customer needs and opinion. It will actually, from the start, it will bias your research, and from there, it will bias your solution. And that's not a good thing because neither the designers nor the customers will kind of like that. So keep an open mind and ensure biases such as HIPPO. HIPPO stands for highly income paid person's opinion. So if there's a major stakeholder in your team, then we don't want that person's influence to overpower everything, right? So these are like some of things that we have to keep in mind to ensure that there's a fair and equitable research, which is like not influenced by any factors. The next thing is pay attention to the initial framing of the problem, not too limited and not too open for interpretation. So I can give you a small example for this one. In the Arctic Ocean, there was the oil spill. And one of the interesting things that happen is that, like, in the cold, the oil becomes highly viscous. So it's difficult to suck this oil out of the ocean. And basically a team that was responsible for actually, framing a solution for this, the idea that they did is they created a competition for everyone to submit their ideas. And while they framed the problem as one of material viscosity. They did not frame, okay, pulling oil out of the Arctic Ocean. It's more like material viscosity. So what happened at that point is, like, a chemical engineer actually was working on cement company. That person actually produced the solution of vibrating this oil so that it becomes less viscous and can be pulled out. So the idea is, like, keep the initial framing of the problem perfect, not too constricted, not too open also, and prioritize discovery research before validation research. Don't ask your designers to create a design and validate that. Start with the discovery to understand the customer more. If it's already available, then go to the next stage. The other thing is, in the process, what I can give tips is set realistic expectations about timelines and resources. So this entire discovery phase and also the design phase and everything is time consuming. So set realistic expectations. You can consider mechanisms such as guerrilla research, targeting, etc. Targeting selected personas. So don't go for all the personas, just go for limited personas to save time. The next one and last one that I would try to focus on is use visual mediums, because after this discovery, you will have to communicate it with the design team and also tech team. So you can use visual mediums like story map, empathy map, or knowledge maps to, so that we can have a bit more shared understanding and, to get more concrete inputs and insights and questions. So I can give you an example of how an empathy map looks like. Like you can ask, who are we empathizing with? What do they need to do? What do they see? What do they say? What do they do? What do they hear? What do they think and feel? The next phase is define phase. So this is the phase where, like the research is done, we have got the user personas, we've got the user journey. Now we have to narrow it down and we want to say that, hey, these are the problems that we want to kind of, look at it. And this is the metrics of the success. So that's the product responsibility. The product team is in charge for this. We have to identify all the relevant tech and non-tech stakeholders and also provide transparency about prioritization, objectives, constraints, the technical business constraints, etc., and approvals needed. And also, this is the time to kind of involve the project manager and create a rough timeline of the scope. The key deliverables is press release, especially right now. A lot of companies are adapting the Amazon working backwards process. So the press release comes first, or the concept paper, the PRD, can come first. The design team over here is actually supposed to create support the product in creating the vision, and also to clarify maybe and keep re-clarifying the vision and scope so that we are both in exact alignment. Also, design team can help to communicate with all other relevant teams like visual design team, etc. And we'll discuss more about them later on. So in define phase, the tip I can give is we can create a clear and unwavering definition of customer problem. Why an unwavering? And slightly unwavering is because we don't want the designers to be working on shifting goalposts, right? So it's better to create a slightly unwavering definition of the customer problem and how this definition of this customer problem is going to impact our business North Star, so that they can believe that this is the base and start working on it. And this is also a time where you should actually create a short-term and medium-term and long-term vision of the product. So basically, when the designer comes with a design, they will go for the best user experience and the most comfortable user experience. But we may have other constraints like technical constraints or time-based constraints or resource constraints for that matter. And we may not want to do the entire, design in one go. So that is a place we know where we should phase it out after negotiation with the design team, and also understand that, hey, if this is the metrics that we want to go and look for each of these phases. And if this metric is suggesting X, then we go for the next phase, etc. And there's also a time to get upper management buy-in on the process. And for the process, what I can say is like you can consider the end-to-end journey of the customer. So when you're defining the problem, like for example, there's a Chinese app called as COVIAM, which is a storytelling app. And one of the important aspects that they tell is like normal storytelling apps are like just read the story. But what this app actually gives the customer is an option to reply back to the story. They can demand the next part of the story. They can, pay the story writer. They can compliment the story writer. So it's a very interactive process. And as you can see, it's also drawing parallels from the physical world. Like, for example, if someone is listening to a story, they would always respond back to the storytelling after a bit, right? Hey, go on. Then what happened? So these kind of, interactions happen in a daily life. So when you draw parallels from the real life, it actually helps the process for defining the problem better. Utilize customer language to communicate vision to UX designers. Don't use data or business logic alone. Make sure that you're communicating it to the UX designers in a bit more customer-centric language. There's many tools for doing that. You can see, I have given it in the end of slides. You can actually access it. So something like a hero's journey, saying that, hey, this user starts like this, then does this, then does this, and then moves around. So these are like a good way to communicate the requirements to the UX designers so that they can also ask questions and kind of clarify it better. Mention obvious constraints, as I said. Prioritize if there are more than two objectives for the same project, like if there is, for example, the same project wants revenue and profit both, these are two different objectives from the perspective of a designer. So we have to ensure that we are designing it properly in such a way that one of these objectives is the primary objective. Let's say one other example can be adoption versus revenue. So while designing the feature, it actually, it makes a difference on which objective is the prioritized objective. Let's go to the next phase, the design phase. So in the design phase, obviously the design team is in the driver's seat. They are the people who will actually start this process. So I will discuss more about the role of the design in this place. So design and coordinate the process of design is the major function. So they will organize and facilitate necessary meetings such as alignment sessions, workshops, etc., wherever they need our input or the business inputs. So they will actually ensure that these things are kind of handled. They will also create conceptual design, that is the entire design of the concept. Information architecture, how is this concept architectured informationally? I will give an example for this one in the later slides. Interaction design, how does the customer interact with our software? Visual design, that is how does the buttons and the text and everything look like? And finally, the copy. So they will also keep the product and management informed generally about the key decision, and they will generally they prefer going from a low fidelity to high fidelity prototype. The product manager's role is mainly to provide helpful insights, assist in evaluating between competing designs whenever there's like more than one design or more, some decision is needed. So they will expect the product managers to give clarity based on some key criteria which they can use. And if alignment with other stakeholders outside the team is needed, so they will help seek the help of a product team over here. So speaking about low fidelity design, this is like an example of low fidelity design that I found online. So this is Jack Dorsey's 2005 first wireframe of Twitter. As you can see, like most of these, at least some of these components have been kind of used in the current Twitter as we see. So let's go more into the things that I said, the conceptual design, information architecture, interaction design, visual design. So the visual design is what the customer actually see. And this is what we as product managers also generally see. However, there's like many levels below this. When we start with the conceptual design, what is the concept? Then we go for information architecture, then we go for interaction design, then we go for visual design generally. So why this is important and essential for product managers to know is essentially this. When the UX designer is expecting feedback from the product manager, they expect feedback at different levels. So you have to understand that, is it a conceptual level feedback they're asking, or an information architecture level, or is it the visual design? So for example, you go to a design review and the feedback they are expecting from you is based on the information architecture level or conceptual design. But the feedback that you are giving is, hey, that button color is not good. That will be kind of jarring in that situation. So it's very essential to understand where in the design process we are, what is the expectation of the designer, and what is the feedback that you are kind of providing to them. So design tip, the tips for PMs in the design phase. First one is in terms of attitude. Be a part of providing safe space for creativity to foster. Design is a high creative space. So we need to make it a safe environment where anybody can shoot off ideas and have the discussion. Second point is avoid limiting ideas in the initial phase of the design. So the way that design proceeds is it first diverges and then converges. So the initial phase of design is like having a lot of wild ideas thrown around, and that discussion happens. So as product managers, we should not think about cutting ideas or think of it as a waste of time. What we should think of it as like, this is like an initial fodder for the actual, idea or the actual solution to take form. And that is where once that process of, having this broad phase is done, that's when we will actually, need to come in and gate the scope gently. For selecting the right ideas, we can use objective criteria like very, metrics or some principles and some key objectives. So saying, hey, these are the ideas that work and these are the ideas that doesn't work. Know and use the key terminologies used by designers. So that is why I kind of took you through some of those terms as well. And there's an entire list of all the terms that UX designers use that I could find online and I have known. So it's there in the slides. You can just go through there, and it has links to take you through blogs, articles, blogs, and some other places where you will find more information about those key terminologies as well. So please feel free to download the slides and kind of take the use of this, use it. So processes, in terms of processes, what I can say is like accommodate for processes like design testing, like there will be a test of QA of design as well. Visual design, where there's a design engineer that actually creates this component. So if you want a new component, like a new type of action button or new call to action, or let's say a new type of text, so it will take time, and so that is a process. Copywriting is a process, translations are a process. So all of these actually happen post design, and you have to accommodate for processes like this because they have their own pipelines, own approval processes, and own mechanisms to kind of happen. So while you're looking for timelines, keep in mind that these processes will also be there. Engage in discussions with UX designers and engineers to effectively phase out the remarkable experience. I already had discussed about this. Understand the design stage and kind of review it. That's also something that I discussed earlier. Obtain stakeholder buy-ins on the vision and features by hosting workshops and product seminars. So this is like a very smart thing to do. Invite your business stakeholders in design workshops and get them to be part of this process and engage in this process. This will be a lot useful in the final demo, or when you want the approval in this process. It's far better to do it at this stage than to do it at a very late stage. I'll quickly go through a case study, and just so that you get an idea a bit more about the information architecture. So this is like get the look. There's a feature by Zalando that actually not only sells individual products, but a combination of products. As you can see, there's perfume and there's a coat and there's a shirt and there's a jeans. So a person can buy all of this as a combination as well as an individual item. So this is a new concept which Zalando came as an innovative concept some years back. It's not like new, but it's an innovative concept that was created by Zalando some years back. So if you see, like this is another example, there's a designer who actually creates this one, and a customer can actually wish list this item that you see, this heart. They can buy these items individually, and they can look at all the designs given by this designer. They can understand about the designer. So I want to take you through conceptual model and information architecture, because it's like generally the tougher parts. The other parts generally is being understood. So conceptually what you want is an easy journey for the customer to discover and keep engaging with new styles. So we want them to discover these new styles and keep engaging with this, like come wishlist them, buy them, etc. The style should create trust and be relevant to the customer, and need to allow the customers to wishlist to give a relevant recommendation. This is just a broad conceptual model. So in terms of information architecture, which is created based on this conceptual model, you can see like there's an entity like designer. So in designer, what all we need followers of this designer, so people can follow them so that they are able to discover the new designs by this designer. We have the description so that customers can engage with this designer, photo visits, counts, buys, design. So these are like all attributes within the designer. Then there will be, each of this designer will have a designs. So each of the design will be, there will be items that is a source product of this one. There will be people visits, there'll be wish list, etc. So then there will be items that is like part of designs. So then each of these items will have their attributes, so on and so forth. Then you can also have an information hierarchy of the pages. How do you go from designer page is there. From designer pages, you can go to design pages. Then you can go to category page, etc. So this is like just an example of how information architecture can be created. And this is something that UX designer thinks of, whether explicitly or not is another matter, that like some people have implicitly integrated in their process and they kind of do it. But we don't need to get too involved in the detailed process, but it's good to know this process so that you know which element or which part of the design are we speaking about. This is the list of key drivers of design or terminologies of design that I said. You can just click on each of these links. It will take you to some blogs. Really want to thank the authors for the blogs. It is not my blogs, so you can just click on it and access these blogs and kind of help yourself to this knowledge. It will be helpful. The last phase is deliver phase, and I don't want to spend too much time because on this one, because this one, the tech is the driver's seat. This is a topic for the entirely a different webinar, but let me quickly go through this so that you you get an idea, complete picture of this one. So here, as we say, the key thing, key objective is to ensure the tech is understanding, is understanding the requirements. And for this, we have to ensure that precise communication for requirements is done. And design also has to help in, communicating and clarifying design requirements. As product, we have to verify all edge cases of design and copy is ready for tech to proceed for development. Not only the happy use cases, but the sad use cases, the error cases, everything is there. And we also have to ensure there's sufficient and effective channels of communication between tech and design team. For the design side, what they have to also do is, test the final developed design. It's really, really helpful to have the design, have a look at the final developed solution in a staging environment, so that they can figure out bugs or problems before it's exposed to other stakeholders, or God forbid, the customers. Also, notify that updated design system. So design is a continuous process. It's a living document sometimes. So if there's changes within this document, they have to ensure that there's a proper channel and they're able to inform the developers that the design is changing. So this is the key roles in deliver phase. And tips for PMs is just to complete it. The deliver phase is not only about developing, it's also about the final launch and post-launch. I'm covering everything together in this one, deliver stage. So obviously this is the time when you appreciate and give credit to the designers for their hard work. And this is also the time when, if there's some criticism, so protect the design team from them. I think it would be really helpful for fostering the belief that, the UX is everybody's baby. Everybody has taken the UX vision together, so that, it's a combined thing, but also appreciate the UX designers for the hard work, of course. In terms of process, involve interested tech teams. Now, this is like an interesting angle. A lot of tech team members are interested in design and they wanted to be part of the process, but generally they don't get time or not. It will be beneficial and it will be like a morale boosting activity to involve the tech also, especially the front-end tech team, to be in part of this design process wherever needed. Provide access to staging environment to design teams so they can test. Staging environment is an environment where you test the software before it is passed in the final deployed to the customer. The next one is if there's a demo, so just align the expectation with difficult stakeholders. Hope you had, like in the previous stages, I have told to involve the stakeholders before itself. So just align the expectations with them. And the last tip would be to share marketing materials with the design team, as there might be some inconsistency between the design and the marketing materials. We need to have both of them to be speaking the same language and ensuring the same experience is communicated to the customers. Few bonus tips from my side, and I'll quickly go through it. In terms of structure and process, this is like something that everybody talks about, but it's difficult to follow also, I must admit. Involve designers and engineering lead also early in the process, and include them for creating a product strategy, prioritization, and early business discussion. Don't silo roles. Keep the association and role-based differentiation blurry. Don't say that, hey, this is only a product role versus this is only a design role. Keep it blurry so that the design team can also contribute and they feel that. And trust me, in today's world, what we see is like no one profile brings in all the expertise needed for a particular role. Everybody's inputs is needed, and we kind of need to kind of ensure that everybody's voice is also heard. Allocate time for your design depths. What is design depths? It's similar to technical depths. These are the things that I was speaking about. When we phased out things for design, with the remarkable experience that the design team came in, there will be some part of this experience that's left out. So whenever you're making your roadmap for the year, just ensure that part of these are also included. These design depths that we can call them are also included in the roadmap. empower team to decide fast. As product managers, we are not the owners of the decision while making product. We are just the owners of the velocity of decision making. Just remember that. Keep the, if the fundamental principles of the product is intact, the key objectives is intact, empower the team to make decisions faster. In case of disagreements, like let's say, and this is very common, like, you may have creative disagreements with the UX or the way of working, they may have a disagreements on the way of working, etc. What you need to kind of do is like look for the root assumption. I have multiple such instances in which we kind of had differences of opinion, but the reason was like maybe a fundamental assumption. Maybe it is as simple as prioritization objectives. Let's say there's competing objectives within which has been given to the designer. That may be one reason. The other reason is that the process for communication or decision making was not clear to the design team. And so these are like some things that we should keep in mind and ensure that we look at the fundamental principles of why the disagreement is happening, have a meta discussion, if you may, with the design team on these ones. The last one, related to the process, which I was actually raising also. Just ensure the process is not too rigid and communicate that with the design team also, that hey, the process is not fully rigid. We can actually communicate and share and evolve the process together and based on feedback, etc. The sprint retro is a good platform to do that. I mean, keep the process open to have this feedback in every stage of the development as well. This is the last one. This is more about people, and I want to end it with the same quote. As we know, technology is relatively easy and people are hard. So just want to kind of focus a bit more about people and specific things that PMs should realize and use to actually create a smooth collaboration with designers. Nurture the young designers in teams. Just as product managers, designers also have imposter syndrome and confidence crisis sometimes in their design. They also face a lot of criticism and successful reviews. So if there's young designers in your team, just encourage them and with positive validations. Second thing, and a very important point that I understood with experience and speaking to a lot of designers, is that different designers have different strengths and seniority and preference of work. There will be some who are like good at visual design. There's some who will be good at interaction design, etc. So understand that, keep it in your mind. It's not that we have to do anything, but if there's a process to assist in matching of the right strength to right problem, just support that process. That will be done by the design lead, not by the product manager, but just assist in the process and try to understand where the decision is coming from. You will also be understanding that. Another key thing to keep in mind is the seniority of the designer. So as much as the designer is becoming more senior, the more abstract the problem they want to deal with. They don't want to deal with a very specific problem. They want to deal with a bit more abstract problem, like how to increase the adoption of this tool, or how to ensure we are getting more revenue, or like a bit more abstract than a specific project. More abstract can also include more involving more platforms or creating processes by which other UX designers are actually creating better designs, etc. So just understand these points and keep it in mind. So the third point is also an interesting one. This is about data. So generally, product managers, as I said in the starting slides, generally product managers are more tending towards being a bit more quantitative, and so ensure that you are presenting the optimum amount of data to generate interest. I'm not saying UX designers are not good at processing data. I have met a lot of UX designers who are actually better than me in processing data and doing analysis. So, but understand who is the person you are interacting with in the UX team. Understand what is the optimum amount of data needed to prove your case, or needed to communicate the decisions that you are taking, or the reason why your definition of problem is in such way, and communicate it. Allow for disagreements, but don't let them get personal. Remember that we are not the work. We are like people, and we have this culture, and we have this team, and we are part of it. Don't compliment, as I have been telling you. It's collaboration. That doesn't mean that product managers manage and make decisions and designers design. So we have to complement each other in each of the phases and encourage active interaction with them. And last but not the least, have fun together. Don't make it only a PM-based fun event. Have fun together, hang out with your designers and the tech, and ensure that you are all having fun together. That's all from my side, and hope you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you. Thank you for being here.